As mentioned, welcome to the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. And since calendar year 2007, we have had a monthly meeting focused upon the latest and greatest in Microsoft technology with a specific slant towards SharePoint. And so I'm Eleazer, co-founder, current president of the group. And let's get into our announcements for this evening. First of all, if you are checking into the meeting in the chat, make sure you list where you are checking in from. In the chat, list where you are viewing this broadcast from. And so now, we're going to some brief announcements and group overview. What is the Baltimore SharePoint User Group? First of all, I'd like to thank our streaming sponsors. I'd like to thank the various platforms and nonprofit organizations, educational institutions that allow for us to stream to their channels and profiles in order to spread our message. And so we're ever thankful for that. We've been around for quite some time, and so it's always good to meet new members and new people who want to learn technology. And we've been around long enough to make that easier for them. So when we talk about Baltimore SPUG, what it is Maryland's longest running Microsoft-focused community institution. So we've helped many of the who's who get their start, get their love for speaking, get the speaking bug, so to speak. And so I'm very happy to continue that in a virtual sense. When we look at the numbers, training, certification, we have to go back and recalculate this because it is higher, but 2,100 people within this region as the group itself prior to COVID was not virtual, all in person, monthly meetings, building a tight-knit community where in many cases, people, attendees and members did not know what the topic would be, but would show up with the intent to learn, the hunger to learn, and develop their skill set. So tons of MVPs or Microsoft valuable professionals, tons of, let's say, people who have gone on to work for Microsoft directly. And so all across that range of people are people who just simply want to learn and people who took it to the next level and continue to grow. 6 Microsoft practices, 3 of which are Microsoft Gold practices, started within our membership ranks. So how this worked in quite a few cases, someone may have gotten laid off, someone may have been working at a company and met 1 or 2 other engineers, developers, or project managers and said, hey, this stuff is, it's challenging, but I think I have a certain grasp on the technology. Let's start to do this ourselves. And one of the things that will ruin you as a professional is when you discover what your company is billing you as. So let's say you, as an IT professional, are paid by your company $50 US per hour. Baseline round numbers, $50 per hour. Okay, great. It pays the bills. However, you discover one day in reviewing the statement of work that your bill rate is actually $250 US. And so you say, whoa, the company is billing $250 for my time. I'm delivering great services, and I'm only getting 1/5 of that particular pie. And so that is oftentimes the equation that rattles people's brains and leads them to starting their own company, freelancing, and/or practice. So it's always interesting to see those companies continue to grow. Some have freelance, but specifically, there's been a few companies that have started within the membership that have evolved and become profitable enough to actually sponsor our SharePoint Saturday annual conference. And those sponsorship slots are not a drop in the bucket, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very proud to see the evolution. So continuing forward. Special thanks to ProObject. ProObject has been rated as one of the top 100 places to work in the great state of Maryland. Now, within the great state of Maryland, there's many companies that have an interest in Microsoft technology, in SharePoint, but what they were able to do was provide us stability in hosting our meetings. I said all the time, is that as a user group host, if you are, let's say one month you're meeting in Panera Bread. So you gather everyone up and you meet at Panera Bread. Next month, you're meeting at a church banquet hall where maybe they are, playing bingo one night and then you meeting the next night. And so next, you meet at, let's say, the Microsoft building, for example. It's just a number of different, the inconsistency of that is a struggle, is a challenge. So that's always something that we're thankful for, that we're able to have a consistent venue and so on and so forth. So special thanks to ProObject for all that they've done for us. Let me make sure I check the, okay, thank you for that detail. The chat is disabled. I have to work on that detail. So now, if you are looking for a position, if you're looking for a career change, you can contact TM Staley at ProObject.com. And so TM Staley at ProObject.com. Now, there's a lot of layoffs in the IT world. Contracts are ending. Things are uncertain at this time. And so here's what we're doing to step up in this case. And so we have the golden rule here at the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. And that is that you, as a member, are traveling from somewhere in order to attend our meetings, whether you are coming from work after a long day in the office, whether B, you are in between jobs and searching for work all day and then coming to the group, or C, maybe you work from home, or maybe you're a consultant, maybe you have a practice, but everyone is coming from something and coming to join us. And so what we've always strived to do is to make sure that our meetings are not a sales fest. Believe me, there are recruiters who they swarm to us like bees to honey. And so we don't want our meetings to be a constant pitch fest. However, we can leverage the fact that we do have talented recruiters who are looking to staff positions for our members who are, let's say, out of work, have been laid off, let go. And so if you are in that boat, is a confidential process. All you need to do is send your resume to me. And so I will match make you with a recruiter who I trust and can vouch for. Some people have a dislike of staffing professionals. I don't. But at the same time, if someone is not ethical, then I also have an issue with that. And so send your email, and there's no finder's fee. There's no hidden charge. You won't get an invoice in the mail 30 days later. Nothing of that sort. If you are a member, you've attended a Baltimore SharePoint users group meeting, then this applies to you. Now, moving along. For those of you who need support in terms of, hey, I need to know where my resume stands, we offer resume and career review through September 1st, 2022. So this means if you are looking to apply somewhere and you don't know what to do, we can help you. Use your resources, folks. Use your resources. Now, as I mentioned, 6 people or 6 companies were formed through the BSPUG meetings and community and events and conferences. And you may be the next one. And so, especially during COVID, many people were sent home and discovered, wait a minute, I have always wanted to launch this business, and how do I do it? Maybe you're a rock star developer or a great architect, but you have no idea how to write a business plan. That's where SCORE comes into play. What SCORE is the nation's largest network of business mentors. It's a free service that is provided, and there's 6 locations throughout the state of Maryland. All centers provide virtual support. So you can meet via Teams, via Zoom, via phone call, and get the support and help that you need. And so these are all things to take advantage of. SCORE URL is listed. It is greaterbaltimore.score.org. That is greaterbaltimore.score.org. Now, I'm going to cover some tips and tricks. And if you have any questions about tips and tricks for a career, then use the Q&A feature here. Do not use the chat, use the Q&A feature. Zoom webinar, something's going on with the chat. It has a preference for the Q&A, so we'll use that. So let's get into this. I'm going to cover some brief tips. And so this falls under types of speaking. So if you have a specific topic, break fix, lessons learned, installation walkthrough, or you have a topic that you want to vet in front of our audience for delivery to a larger conference or SharePoint Saturday, or you name it, then you should come to us. We are a supportive group, and we'll give you great feedback. Now that that's out the way, career tips and tricks for Microsoft Professional. So right now, I'm just making sure I'm checking through the various social media platforms to make sure I'm not missing any questions, comments, etc. So, okay, give me one moment and then we'll get to it. Tips and tricks. Tips and tricks. Okay, finally. All right, so let's cover a few topics here. Number one, if you're going to continue down this path of being a Microsoft or SharePoint or Microsoft 365 or Office 365 or Power Platform professional, the lifetime learner's approach is going to be important. Let's say in times past when SharePoint especially was on premises, and many professionals who were established during that time got lost in the shuffle when Microsoft shifted its strategy to more of a cloud first, starting with a hybrid implementation. And so when certifications became outdated and skill sets became, let's say, no longer relevant, there are many people who struggle to find their way. Others have morphed into, Power Platform, which has great support. But the key is that you have to, let's say, start to think about the entire platform, and that's what you have to start to do. Instead of just saying, well, I'm only focused on SharePoint, which was something you could do in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, organizations have a bit more maturity, and the adoption rates have gone up, and they've lived with these products for years now. And so now they're looking to, within their change control boards, start to use the Microsoft planners of the world and start to dive deeper into Microsoft Teams. And you have to ride the wave of ingenuity, innovation, and continue to learn so that you always have an answer to the challenges that your organization may face. And so that's the most important detail. User groups in themselves are excellent for lifetime learning. And I credit user groups for giving me the leg up at organizations that I've consulted for, because I see information in news and notes and resources and tips and trips and skill sets months oftentimes before many of my counterparts. Now, this is not to say that I'm a better professional than them, but it always helps if you're the person who knows how to find an answer. And so that's what I credit it for. Next is how to use LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn.com, there's so many people who, let's say, miss the boat when it comes to LinkedIn. I would say the first thing you want to keep in mind is that LinkedIn should not be used as a faucet, meaning off or on. And so you have to find a way to have a continuous contact with it. And so what I recommend is to use LinkedIn as a dashboard for your actual professional life. Meaning, if I was to go to the Inspire or Microsoft Partner Conference and I meet people at the conference, instead of exchanging business cards, I'm going to connect with them via LinkedIn. And so if I, for example, at the same said conference, happen to attend a session by, let's say, Dux Raymond Sy, for example, and I'm going to connect with Dux on LinkedIn, and I'm going to connect with other colleagues that I met during those sessions. So it brings context to your connections. And so that's my number one recommendation for LinkedIn, is to allow it to be a mirror of your current life and situation. Any questions? Please use the Q&A. Any questions about career, about anything I've covered? Any questions? Okay. Now, in terms of some details that you have to keep in mind and or consider, let's talk about job hopping. And so because the market for so many years, as I record this live stream, I'm outside of our nation's capital, which has widely been considered the nation's largest network of SharePoint professionals. And so it's number one market due to the adoption in medical institutions, in educational institutions, in government agencies, and Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 organizations. And so people in this region, in this market, have jumped all over positions that offer them 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, the signing bonus, and left their companies over and over again. Of course, as you will know, that you're not supposed to burn bridges, but oftentimes people say that changing jobs is the way that you actually raise your salary. If you stay, the common school of belief is that if you stay at one company for too long, it's going to take longer to get the 2% raised over time versus going to another company that sees your skill set in demand and will compensate you for that. Let's see, we have a question here. Outside of the government space, is there much opportunity for SharePoint developers? Great question. And so when we talk about SharePoint development, I would tell you that development during this particular point in time is one of the most in-demand skill sets that you can have because it's built for you to work in a remote setting. Now, when we talk about government agencies, for example, that can be a bit more challenging because you have VPN considerations and some organizations are slow to adopt to remote, but for private sector, absolutely. And so private or organizations tend to hire developers more so than other project managers, and developers are being picked up in growing numbers because those are roles that can operate anywhere. And so, yes, the market is red hot for SharePoint developers out of, let's say, your business analysts, your developers, your administrators. And so the learning curve to go from an administrator who needs to learn, let's say, front-end web development, or let's say some form of coding that the employer wants them to have, that's a bigger jump than for a developer maybe to learn how to write documentation, possibly perform configurations, because at the price point that many organizations are willing to pay, they're going to want as more of a comprehensive talent as possible, which means, yes, fellow developers, they may ask you to do an installation here and there or do configurations here and there. But to the original question of the demand, yes, developers and project managers have the greatest opportunity to land new roles during this time. So hope that answers your question. Any other questions before I go into salary negotiation? As I check the other social media platforms to make sure we don't miss anyone here. Thank you for your questions so far. Okay, moving along. Now, when it comes to salary negotiation, if there's anything that I want you to keep in mind, going back to the previous point that I made, is that the person who discovers that their colleague is earning more for the same perceived amount of work is going to be a sad individual. And so what you have to keep in mind is that in many cases, a negotiation is just that. And many organizations will not tell you what you're able to get. And so if you're asked first let's say, what type of salary range are you expecting? I would first ask for a range. What range is competitive for this opportunity, and let them come back with a range of 10,000. So that could be from, again, 65,000 to 75,000. That may be from 115,000 to 125,000. And so the range allows you a bit of wiggle room in order to negotiate and make sure that you are able to get closer to your dream number or goal number with the new opportunity as possible. And so the person who gives the range first or tends to lose the leverage. So if the recruiter or the manager says, how much are you comfortable earning? And you just throw out, oh, $40 an hour, you may miss out on the larger opportunity, especially since many companies will not disclose this. What we're seeing now is a growth in disclosures from state to state and commonwealths, where companies are being required to share not only the description, but the salary range as well. And so that's a game changer from a negotiation standpoint, because many people don't understand their value to the marketplace and map that to a competitive salary. And so finally, the best way to find a job in SharePoint is to not need a job at all. What does this mean? So the best time to look is when you already have. And so you want to be building your relationships within user groups, within code camps, within various events and online communities. And you want to be helpful to others. So if a recruiter is looking for a certain talent and you know your colleague has it, introduce them. If you know a colleague who is out of work, connect them. And so this builds a reciprocity engine within your career where people will return a favor. It may not be immediate, it may not be like for like, but at some point down the road, if you're showing up in front of the right people who make decisions, it can only help you. And so the other part to that is your referral network. So asking around, hey, do you have any opportunities within your company that I can take on a part-time basis, full-time basis? That also helps. So that would be the best way to find a job in SharePoint. Before we wrap up this short session, it wasn't meant to be a long presentation. Do you have any final questions on career tips and tricks that I can demystify for you, my dear attendee? Give it a moment. Okay. On behalf of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group, Maryland's longest running Microsoft-focused institution, I thank you for attending this session. I will see you next month. We'll have a guest speaker, so please stay tuned. Thank you very much for tuning in.